Welcome, dreamers, to the realm where time lies hidden beneath moss and mist. Tonight, we drift beyond the veil of memory, into the heart of Ireland where green hills cradle an ancient enigma older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, a place built by hands now lost to time, a chamber where sunlight touches stone with sacred precision. Only once a year. This is new. A tomb, a temple, a time machine carved into the earth, whispering secrets of a world we no longer understand. Before we embark on this journey through time's mysteries, if these ancient whispers resonate with your soul, let your presence be known through a gentle like, and join our circle of dreamers by subscribing to continue these nightly journeys into history's hidden realms. Share with us, fellow dreamers, from which corner of the world you're joining tonight's contemplation. Let the global community of history's mysteries connect across time zones as we drift together into the past. Close your eyes, and let the spirit of stone and shadow guide you now into the Neolithic night, beneath the soft weight of the Irish sky, where clouds move like slow-drifting thoughts across a green and ancient land, lies a mound older than history. Its surface is cloaked in grass, wildflowers, and the patient silence of centuries. From afar, Newgrange might appear as nothing more than a curious hill, but step closer, and you'll see it. The stones each one a voice in a language long forgotten. They do not speak aloud, but they remember, set into the hillside. A white quartz facade gleams faintly, even beneath the gray veil of a rainy morning. Large curbstones, some carved with spirals that twist like dreams, form the sacred perimeter, holding the earth in a quiet embrace. One stone, massive and deliberate, guards the entrance. Its swirling engravings draw the eye inward, until time begins to loosen its grip. To the Neolithic people who shaped this structure over 5,000 years ago, stone was not simply stone. It was memory. It was permanence. A message to the future, carved not with words but with symbols that echoed eternity. Here stone was chosen not only for strength, but for its soul. This is not just a tomb, it is not just a chamber. It is a mind constructed in earth and rock, a place where the sun is invited to enter only on the shortest day of the year, slipping its golden fingers down a narrow stone passage to kiss the inner sanctum. How did they know? Why did they build? The stones hold the answers. Or perhaps they only deepen the questions. So we begin our descent, dreamers, into a spiral that bends time, into a place where sunlight speaks only once a year, and where the dead, perhaps, were not laid to rest, but to awaken. Let us step carefully. Let the moss guide us. Let the hush of the wind be our companion in this ancient place where the stones... Remember, it begins with a spiral, not just on stone, but within the mind turning, as if trying to recall something it once knew in a forgotten dream. The carvings at Newgrange are no ordinary decorations. They are riddles in motion, spirals, lozenges, chevrons. They do not tell a story. They suggest one, and in that suggestion lies a deeper stillness. On the great entrance stone, the threshold between the outer world and the inner three interlocking, spirals weave into each other like breath, like birth, like death. It is not just art, it is invocation. But the spiral is also an invitation. It asks us to come inward, to leave behind the linear march of time and, instead, surrender to the sacred curve. In this spiral, there is no beginning and no end. It is the perfect form of mystery, always returning, always deepening, always circling back to a center we cannot quite see. And in that center, silence. When you enter Newgrange, the sound of the outside world falls away. There is no wind, no birdsong, only your breath. And even that feels borrowed. The passage grows narrow as you move inward, stone pressing in on either side. The air cool and timeless. Walls lean toward you, guiding your steps as if the structure itself were alive, gently ushering you toward the womb at its heart. You feel the spiral in your body now. The descent is physical, but also something else. You are circling inward, not just through earth, but through the layers of your own forgotten knowing. The spiral is not just in the rock, it is in your bones. And when you reach the chamber, when you stand beneath the great corbelled vault that has not shifted in 5,000 winters, there is a silence that is not empty. It is full, heavy with presence. The spiral has led you here not to explain, but to remind. In this place, the ancients did not shout their truths. They whispered them into stone, so that silence itself would carry their message. We must listen not with ears, but with the parts of us that have always known how to hear the earth. So let us stay a while longer in this sacred hush, and allow the spiral to do what it does best, to return us, to wonder. In a world where the sun is constant and the hours tick by in mechanical rhythm, it is easy to forget that ancient people lived by the breath of light. They watched the sky not just for warmth, but for meaning. And at Newgrange, light is more than a daily occurrence. It is a visitor, rare and sacred. It is something that waits, and something worth waiting for. The entrance of the tomb is aligned so precisely that on only one morning each year at the winter solstice, inching its way to the heart of the chamber, for just a few moments, the darkness that reigns the other 364 days is pierced, not by accident, not by luck, but by a design as deliberate as breath. And so we ask ourselves, who were these people? 5,000 winters ago, who could read the heavens with such intimacy? Who understood the turning of the earth so well that they could summon light to dance at the exact moment when darkness was longest? They must have watched and waited and remembered. Imagine them on the morning of the solstice, gathered outside in the cold mist, breath clouding before them, eyes fixed on the horizon, a hush over the land, not unlike a prayer. And then that first golden thread stretching from the sky to the stone, moving gently, like a whisper of fire, into the narrow passage. It does not rush, it glides, it caresses the stone walls, tracing their ancient carvings with fingers of light, and then after its long journey it arrives at the center. There, it rests, just for a moment, and in that moment, all time folds. This is not simply a marking of seasons. This is ritual. This is the choreography of cosmos and earth, of people and purpose. But why? Why go to such lengths to guide a single shaft of light into a stone womb? Perhaps to remind the living that even in the darkest days, the sun returns. Perhaps to speak to the dead, carrying a message of warmth from the world above. Or perhaps the light itself was not for us, but for something deeper, older, watching through the stones. Whatever the reason, it was enough for them to build this sacred machine from stone and shadow. Enough to wait each year for the moment the sun would remember them. Enough to believe that light, too, was alive, and that it would always find its way back. Before history had ink, before it had parchment, or symbols shaped by hand, ... There were stones, and there were those who shaped them, not just to shelter, but to remember. Who they were, we do not know. No names, no signatures, only echoes left in granite and quartz. Yet the memory remains. The builders of Newgrange lived in a time we now call the Neolithic, roughly 3,200 years before the birth of the calendar, before written records began to flow across clay tablets in Mesopotamia. These were not savages as once assumed. They were skywatchers, planners, dreamers. They understood the rhythm of seasons, the language of the land, and the patience of stone. To create Newgrange, they moved over 200,000 tons of earth and rock. Some stones were brought from mountains miles away, huge slabs that required more than strength to carry. They needed vision, unity, will, and what guided them. No blueprints remain. No sketches drawn on cave walls. Only the outcome, this perfect passage tomb, aligned to a solstice sun and filled with intricate art. Its design speaks not of guesswork, but of purpose, as though each stone had a memory before it was placed, as though each hand that lifted it knew precisely where it belonged. Some believe entire communities gathered for the construction, weaving together not just stone, but society. Perhaps it was sacred labor, a pilgrimage of building, children growing up watching the mound rise, elders whispering wisdom beneath the sound of hammer on stone. They did not leave stories in the way we think of stories, but they left one in shape and shadow, in spiral and silence, a monument to memory, and to those who choose to remember. Today, we walk upon roads paved with names and numbers, but they carved their truths into the earth. And so, in Newgrange, the memory of a people remains not in words, but in alignment, in angle, in the ritual of rising sun and resting dark. The tomb is not simply a place of the dead. It is a mind, a thought, still turning beneath the soil. Perhaps, in building Newgrange, they built a way to outlive themselves. Perhaps, in building it, they became time. Step softly now, for we are entering the deepest part of the tomb, the chamber at the heart of Newgrange, where 3 recesses open like petals of a stone flower, and the ceiling rises into a cobalt vault untouched by collapse in over 50 centuries. Here, beneath layers of time, lies the quiet cradle of the builder's intent. It has been called a tomb. But what is a tomb? Truly, to us it is a place where a body is laid to rest. But to them, those ancient dreamers, death was not an end. It was a doorway, a threshold, and thresholds, as we have seen, were sacred. Within this chamber, archaeologists found remains, cremated bones resting in stone basins, fragments of once living people, now transformed into ash. But even in that transformation, something stirs. These were not bodies abandoned. They were returned to the earth through fire, made light enough, perhaps, to travel. Each basin sits within a carefully sculpted recess, forming a trinity of direction. Some have wondered if the layout mimics the stars, or the sun's journey, or perhaps something even more mysterious, the structure of the soul. Above these recesses, the ceiling lifts like the inner curve of a shell. Each overlapping stone supports the next, forming a dome that has withstood the weight of millennia. No mortar binds them, only balanced them, only trust in the harmony of their design. This place was meant to endure, not just physically, but spiritually. Imagine lying here, in the stillness, not as a visitor, but as one of the honored dead. You would feel the chill of stone beneath you and above, the breath of light, once a year, finding your resting place. Was it meant to awaken the departed, or was it a sign to the living that even the dead have their moment in the sun? The chamber is not cold in the way one might expect. It hums with presence. The stones are not just material, they are memory. They are guardians. In this small, sacred heart, where light and shadow meet only once each winter. We glimpse the Neolithic soul not bound by death, but reimagining it, not fearing it, but folding it into the rhythm of cosmos and stone. This was not a tomb, it was a chamber beyond death, and it still listens for those who arrive in silence. Before you ever step inside Newgrange, before the dark passage swallows you and the spiral begins its quiet turn, you are met by something radiant and something immovable. A wall of shining white quartz stretches across the front of the mound, glistening even beneath soft rain. And before the entrance, like a sentinel carved from the dream of an ancient god, lies the entrance, stone massive, weighty, carved in curves that ripple like the surface of a sacred pool. Together, they form the threshold. The quartz glows not with fire, but with memory, its crystals capturing light from the sky and reflecting it gently, like a whisper returned. To the Neolithic people, quartz was not merely decorative. It was alive, it pulsed with the breath of the earth. It was used in burial rites across Prehistoric Ireland, perhaps to guide the spirit, or to bind light to stone. Imagine the effect. A wall of shimmering white, catching the low winter sun, casting pale reflections on the grass before the mound. A visual echo of the light that would soon enter the passage. And just beneath that radiance, the guardian stone rests. It is not merely an obstacle, it is a statement. Carved with spirals again, the eternal curve, it does not explain itself. It asks you to pause, to reconsider your pace, to see the journey inward not as a walk, but as a passage into mystery. Some say you must climb it to enter. Others believe it once marked the true boundary between the world of the living, and that of the ancestors. Whatever the case, it remains unmoved, watching. The spirals upon it are deep and precise. They have not worn away. Perhaps because they were never meant to fade. Perhaps because, in some ancient way, they continue to be drawn each time someone looks upon them and wonders. Quartz, guardian, threshold. These are not ornaments. They are instruments of transformation. Once you cross beneath their watchful presence, you are no longer simply a visitor. You are a seeker, stepping into a riddle made of stone. Long before the name Newgrange was ever spoken, before English words carved over the Irish land, this sacred valley held another name, a name older than empire, older than paper, older than time measured in kings. It means the palace of the Bóinne. And here, nestled along the gentle curves of the river Bóinne, the earth rises in mysterious mounds, Newgrange among them. But it is not alone. To its west rests Noth, to its east Douth, and scattered across the bend of the river, more than 90 other monuments whisper through the soil, silent echoes of a time when this valley was a vast ceremonial landscape, a place where earth and sky, life and death, present and memory were all woven together. Now was not a tomb complex, it was a cosmic theater. Each mound, each standing stone, was placed not at random, but in a pattern that defies accident. Many are aligned with the movements of the sun, the moon, the stars. Together they form a great, slow-breathing calendar, a map not of territory, but of time itself, and perhaps of something more. The stories that survive hint at power, at reverence, at magic. In later Celtic mythologies, his valley became the home of the Tuatha De Danann, gods and goddesses of knowledge and mystery. Newgrange was said to be the burial place of Dagda, the Great Father, a place where time could be folded and the other world touched. But even those myths came long after the stones. The truth is more elusive, more silent. What did the people of Na believe? Why did they labor so patiently to raise these earthen temples? Were they seeking to mark the heavens, or to mirror them? Perhaps, like a harp tuned to celestial rhythm, the entire valley sang to the stars. Even today, if you stand in the fields before sunrise, you may feel the quiet resonance in your bones, a hum beneath your feet, not noise, but presence. The Bóinne winds gently through this place, reflecting the sky like a mirror turned sideways. Its waters remember, the grass remembers, the stones, most of all, remember. Na is not merely a sight on a map. It is a thought that never ended, a prayer that still moves beneath the silence. Above the central chamber of Newgrange rises a ceiling unlike any other, a vaulted dome composed not of arches or more, but of pure intention, held aloft by weight, by balance, by the ancient geometry of patience. This is the corbelled sky, stone upon stone, each one slightly overlapping the one below it, reaching inward, until the opening disappears. Like the narrowing spiral of a shell, the corbelled roof draws the eye upward even in darkness, lifting the mind towards something unseen. Built over 5,000 years ago, and yet through storms, seasons, and centuries it has not fallen. No water leaks through, no crack has broken its quiet circle. It holds, and in that holding, it becomes more than structure. It becomes a symbol of the unseen care passed from hand to hand across lifetimes, of a people who believed that the sky, too, could be brought inside. To stand beneath the corbelled roof is to be held within a thought made stone. It rises above the central chamber like a night sky turned to granite, each layer placed with reverence, lifting the soul of the tomb higher, as if to meet the distant constellations, or the spirits they once believed lived among them. Some believe the shape echoes the womb, others the dome of the heavens, perhaps both, for what is the sky if not the womb of light and time? Here, the corbelled roof becomes a kind of sky that does not change, a still point, a firmament made by hands that no longer live, yet still speak through the curve of stone. When the solstice light enters and touches the chamber, it does not reach the roof, but it is framed by it, the living sun and the enduring ceiling, together, completing a conversation across the ages. We do not know the names of those who laid the final stones, but we know they looked up and imagined the stars carved into stillness. They built not for themselves, but for memory, for wonder, and so the corbelled sky remains, quiet, unchanged, gazing down from above, like time itself. Down below the sacred mounds, where the land softens into bends and reeds, the river Bóinne flows with ancient patience. It does not rush, it glides, carrying with it the breath of the valley, and perhaps the echoes of those who once walked its banks in reverent silence. The builders of Newgrange chose this place not just for its height or its visibility, but for its nearness to the water. The river is not simply a boundary, it is a mirror. By day it reflects the sky, by night it holds the stars, and through all seasons, it winds past the tombs like a memory returning. Water has always carried sacred meaning to the Neolithic people. It may have been the path between worlds, a shimmering border between the known and the unknown. The dead might have traveled by boat, their ashes cast into the current, their souls entrusted to the slow passage of the river. Or perhaps the Bóinne was a guardian, circling the sacred like a serpent of time, protecting the valley in loops of endless return. In later Irish myths, a Bóinne became a river of deep power set to be formed when the goddess Bóinne defied the well of wisdom, and its waters burst forth in sacred vengeance. The river was her transformation, her becoming, and in this myth, too, we glimpse the ancient intuition that water does not forget. Even now, if you sit beside the Bóinne in early morning fog, you may feel it's a hush between ripples, the way the breeze carries something older than sound. The river does not speak, but it remembers. Perhaps that is why the mounds were placed in a curve encircled by the river's embrace. The dead were not sent away. They remained, watched over by flowing water, cradled between the sky above and the current below. Time here does not move in straight lines. It wins, it returns, it whispers in the voice of water brushing stone. The river remembers what we have forgotten, and as long as it flows, the valley will dream. Beneath your feet, scattered across the valley and woven into the body of Newgrange itself, lie stones that were once part of mountains, cliffs, and ancient seabeds. They are not uniform, they are not silent. Each holds a presence, a weight beyond its mass, a memory carved into form. Some shimmer with quartz, others bear the slow, swirling grooves of human touch-edge spirals, zigzag and serpent-like paths that wrap around the curve of a stone as if mimicking thought. These are not idle decorations. They are not mere marks. They are meditations in matter. To carve stone in the Neolithic age was no simple task. There were no chisels of steel, no drills of iron, only stone against stone, patience against time, and yet they carved again and again with purpose. Each mark, a choice. Each spiral, a turning of the unseen. They did not write words. They wrote dreams. Some believe these stones represent journeys between worlds, between lives, between states of being. Others say they are calendars, marking the rhythms of the moon or sun, the sacred timing of birth and death, growth and stillness. But perhaps they are not symbols at all. Perhaps they are experiences. When you trace the spiral with your eyes or your fingers, you are not reading, you are entering. You are moving through the same motion carved by a hand 5,000 years ago, a hand guided by memory or vision or longing. The stones do not speak in language, they speak in rhythm, in silence and patience. And there are so many of them. Each curbstone, each standing slab within the chamber, tells its own silent truth. Some are worn, some remain sharp, all endure. To dream, they say, is to remember a place you've never been. And so perhaps the stones of Newgrange are not dreaming themselves, but helping us to dream, helping us to remember what it feels like to stand at the edge of understanding and bow our heads to mystery. These are not just stones, they are thresholds, and they are waiting for you. In most places on earth, the sun rises each day without ceremony. It comes as habit, as rhythm warmth unfolding across rooftops, trees, fields. But here, at Newgrange, the sun is a secret guest. Its presence in the inner chamber is not daily, not even monthly. It comes but once, and when it does, it sinks. The winter solstice deepest night, longest shadow marks the turning of the year. For the people who built this place, it must have been a time of deep uncertainty. Would the sun return? Would the light rise again? and so they built a promise in stone, a passage precisely aligned, not with the eye, but with the stars, a roof box carved above the entrance, designed with almost supernatural knowledge, to allow the low sun of a single dawn to enter not just the tomb but the very heart of it. And when it comes slowly. First, the glow touches the threshold outside, then seeps into the narrow passage like golden breath. Dust glimmers, shadows retreat. Stone by stone, the light advances, as if searching, as if remembering, and finally, it reaches the central chamber. There, in the basin where ashes once lay, the sun rests. It does not blaze, it does not boast, it simply shines soft gold and eternal for just a moment. And in that moment, something sacred unfolds. This is not light as utility, this is light as presence, light as visitor, light as song. The people would have waited for this moment all year. They would have gathered outside in the darkness, watching the eastern horizon, holding their breath. And when the light arrived, when it entered the tomb and touched the bones of their ancestors, they did not cheer, they listened. Because the sun was singing, not with sound, but with meaning. With memory, it was a promise kept, a whisper from the sky to the earth. I have not forgotten you. And perhaps, from the earth to the sky, nor have we forgotten you. The sun that sings once a year does not need to say much. Its silence is its song, and that song still echoes in the chamber, each time the light returns. Just beyond the reach of Newgrange's shadow, nestled in the same bend of the river Bóinne, lies another mound larger, older in its secrets, though quieter in renown. It is called Noth. From the outside, it resembles Newgrange in shape and stature, with its great earthen dome ringed by curbstones. But inside, Noth is something altogether stranger. It holds not one passage, but two, not one chamber, but many, and though light once entered here too, it no longer does. The mound is closed in shadow, and within that shadow, something sleeps. Noth is older than Newgrange in its first stirrings, and far more complex. While Newgrange presents a single, sacred alignment to the winter solstice, Noth speaks in many directions. Its eastern passage and western passage are not aligned to light in the same way. They seem to offer ambiguity, divergence, a labyrinth of meanings. Some say Noth is a library made of stone, a vast and silent archive. Its stones are carved more richly than any other site in the valley. Over 200 decorated stones have been uncovered there, more than at any other prehistoric monument in Europe. And what do these carvings say? They speak not in names, but in movement, curves and crescents, circles within circles, concentric spirals that draw you inward until you forget where you began. These were not idle etchings. They were meditations, maps of time and transformation, but Noth holds a deeper mystery. Its main chamber, once open, once aligned, has long been sealed. Its western passage is now blocked, the chamber beyond it unreachable. There is a hidden place within Noth that no light touches anymore, a chamber that dreams beneath the earth in utter darkness, as if guarding a truth too ancient to be spoken. Some believe the passages at Noth were once used together, perhaps for ceremonies of duality, sunrise and sunset, life and death, east and west. Others believe they reflect a cosmology more complex than we can yet imagine. What is clear is this: Noth was not built for one moment of light. It was built for many moments, many journeys, many returns. While Newgrange sings once a year, Noth whispers always, but only if you listen with more than ears. To walk beside Noth is to feel the breath of something old and unfinished. Its chambers are not empty, they are full of waiting. They are not forgotten, they are dreaming. And somewhere in that hidden chamber, where stone presses against stone in perfect silence, the past still breathes. To the east of Newgrange and Noth, farther along the river's meandering curve, lies a third mound, quieter still, less restored, more broken. Its name is Dowth. Dowth does not gleam with quartz. Its passages are not fully open to the world. It lies partly in ruin, and partly in reverie, as if the centuries chose to wrap it in silence, instead of awakening it. Its name comes from the Irish dubud, meaning darkness. And perhaps in its own way, Dowth embraced what the others resisted. Where Newgrange is the sun's embrace, Dowth is the falling dusk, the deep breath before winter dreams. Yet Dowth, too, aligns with the sky. Its chamber is believed to face the setting sun at winter solstice, as if to mirror Newgrange in reverse. One receives the sun's rising promise, the other its final farewell. Two sides of the same celestial thought. Light arriving, light departing. To the ancient builders, Dowth may have represented not decay, but completion, not failure, but return. The spiral turning back to its source. Inside, the chambers are simpler, rougher. Some have collapsed, others remain filled with carvings, spirals and lozenges, always the spirals, as though even in darkness the pattern continued. The stories around Dowth are shadowed by later legend. Medieval texts tell of a king who sought to build a tower to the heavens in a single day. He summoned his people and cast a spell to stop the sun from setting, so that the work might continue without end. But his pride offended the gods. The sun fell anyway. The spell broke, and the tower was left unfinished. This is Doubt, the place of the four, where light could not be held, where ambition slipped into night. But there is beauty in this fall, in Doubt's silence, in its erosion, because even as the walls crumble, the alignments remain. Even as the chamber darkens, the stones remember. Doubt reminds us that all things fade. But fading is not forgetting, and in the embrace of shadow, there can still be reverence. The sun that sets still speaks, and Doubt listens, not to the brightness, but to the echo. Beneath the soft skin of the earth, beneath the weight of soil and silence, there lies a sky made of stone, not above us but below. A sky turned inward, a firmament forgotten by all but the stones that hold its shape. This is the paradox of Noth, of Dooth. They are not mere tombs. They are observatories turned inside out, built not to gaze up, but to receive what is above, into the very bones of the land. When we stand inside Newgrange on the winter solstice, we are not only watching the sun enter a chamber, we are watching the stars descend. The corbelled dome above is shaped like a sky. The passage is a ray of light. The chamber is a still point at the center of the cosmos. As above, so below. It is a principle spoken in later esoteric traditions. But here, in these Neolithic sanctuaries, it was lived, felt, built. The people of the Bóinne Valley were not just farmers or gatherers. Their monuments mapped the sky in spirals, in alignments, in sacred directions. The moon's cycles, the sun's low arc in midwinter, the invisible patterns that guide seasons and souls alike. At North, carvings are believed to reflect lunar calendars, tracking not just months, but the elusive Metonic cycle, which reconciles sun and moon over 19 years. How could they have known? There are no surviving scripts, no codices, only stones that turn with meaning. They did not need words. They had rhythm. They had repetition. They had the slow patience of night after night under the open sky. The stars above taught them, and they answered with earth. They brought those stars down into chambers of stone, into vaults of darkness that open only once each year, to let a single beam of light remind them what lives beyond the clouds. To enter these tombs is to walk among constellations turned to stone. They are maps, and they are mirrors. And somewhere beneath your feet, the stars are still waiting. Not all memory survives as echo. Some fades gently, like a breath released before sleep. And in that fading, leaves behind a deeper quiet. There is a sound to forgetting, not the sharp crack of loss, but the slow softening of names no longer spoken, the steady erosion of what once was known, until only shapes remain. Newgrange notes, and Doubt were not always sacred ruins. For centuries, they were simply mounds in the landscape, swallowed by grass, grazed by cattle, walked upon by feet, unaware of what lay below. The passageways filled with earth, the carvings disappeared beneath lichen, the light no longer entered, and with each passing generation, what these monuments meant grew dim. They became the stuff of legend, fairy mounds. Some called them hollow hills, gateways to another realm. The Tuatha Dé Danann, said to have retreated into the earth, made these mounds their homes in myth, a pantheon turned subterranean, the people of light hidden in the dark. These stories held some echo of the truth that these places were more than graves. They were dwellings of gods, of memory, of time itself. But the original meanings, the ceremonies, the whispered names of the dead, forgotten. Even their builder's identity became mystery. By the time the Coots arrived, the tombs were already ancient. Imagine that, a people who were ancient to the ancients. And yet the stones remained silent, enduring, because stones do not mourn. Forgetting, they accept it. They do not cry out to be remembered. They wait. And in that waiting, they hold space for rediscovery. For one day, perhaps thousands of years later, someone would clear away the earth, step once more into the passage, and see the light return. The sound of forgetting is not silence. It is stillness. And stillness, too, can be sacred. There comes a moment in every long forgetting when the veil stirs, and something lost begins to breathe again. For Newgrange, that breath returned in the 17th century, when the entrance stone was glimpsed partially revealed, its spirals still intact. But the full awakening came later, in the 20th century, when archaeologist Michael J. O'Keefe stood among the stones and shadows and asked a question that echoed across time. What was this place? Truly, with careful hands and reverent labor, Newgrange was uncovered, its passages cleared, its roof restored, its ancient architecture slowly reborn under modern skies. But it was not until 1967, on the winter solstice morning, that something extraordinary happened. O'Kelly, standing quietly in the chamber, watched as light entered, just as it had 5,000 years before, a single golden beam, perfectly aligned, slipping through the roof box, down the narrow passage, and into the heart of the earth. It was not an accident, not coincidence. It was intention, rediscovered, and with it, wonder returned. Suddenly, this mound was no longer just a burial site, no longer just a relic of Neolithic hands. It was a machine of light and time, a calendar carved in darkness, a sacred geometry still alive, and the world took notice. Today, each winter solstice, a small group of people is chosen by lottery, by hope, by fate, to stand within that chamber as the sun returns. Many come in silence, some with tears, because in that single shaft of morning gold, something ancient rises, not just the sun, but wonder itself, a wonder born not of spectacle, but of alignment, of ancient minds meeting the sky with stone, and shaping the earth to remember what we so often forget, that time is not linear, that light returns, that silence holds its own music, that the past is not gone, it waits, and each solstice morning, as light enters the dark again, we are reminded, not just of what they built, but of how deeply they once believed in what we cannot see. Wonder is not lost, it only sleeps, and now it is waking. There is a shaped to stillness, not chaos, not collapse, but order deliberate, and deeply quiet. The kind of order that does not seek attention, but simply is. The builders of Newgrange in Northern understood that they did not just build structures, they shaped stillness into form. Everything in these monuments speaks through geometry. The passage aligns with the rising sun at its most distant return. The roof box measures light. The inner chamber holds symmetry, its three recesses forming a triskelion of space, echoing the very spirals carved upon the stones. It is not randomness, it is relationship. Each stone, each corner, each silent chamber wall, arranged not for utility, but for resonance. In later ages, sacred geometry would be studied in temples, cathedrals, mandala. But here, in the damp mists of Neolithic Ireland, its principles were already known intuitively, deeply. There is power in symmetry, power in proportion, not because it dazzles the eye, but because it stills the soul. The act of standing in a space where every angle speaks to the sun, where every recess holds a balance, where the walls lean inward toward an unseen point of convergence. It does something to the body. You begin to breathe differently, slower, deeper, as though the architecture itself is guiding your pulse. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is movement in perfect balance. And the builders of Newgrange did not fight against nature. They danced with it. They shaped chambers to embrace shadow, passages to carry light, stone to sing silence. Each curve of the spiral is a journey into that stillness, a way of remembering that the deepest truths do not shout, they settle, they spiral, they wait. In the sacred geometry of Newgrange, we are invited into that same waiting, into a space where thought loosens and presence deepens, where the body remembers what the mind forgets, that we, too, are made of rhythm, of breath, of circle, of silence. And in that silence, we are made whole. Somewhere in the folds of time there were hands rough with stone, weathered by wind, steady with purpose, hands that lifted slabs heavier than memory, that carved spirals in rock with stone tools, day after patient day, hands that never trembled. We do not know their names. No clay tablet preserves them. No song survived their singing, but their touch remains in every curve of quartz, in every silent chamber, in every alignment that still holds the sun. They are not forgotten, but unnamed. And perhaps that, too, was by design, for these monuments were never about the builders themselves. They were about the stars, the light. The return to leave no name is to give everything to the mystery. Yet even so, we wonder, who were they? Were they priests, astronomers? Was there a master of the spiral, a keeper of alignments, an elder who held the memory of stone? Or were they all simply a people united in a long devotion, passing down the vision not in words, but in labor? Children grew into builders, builders into dreamers, dreamers into dust. But the vision continued, a lineage of silence, a heritage of stone. Even the smallest carved pattern hidden at the back of a curbstone speaks of care, of meaning known only to the one who carved it, and to the one who felt its presence in the dark. We feel them still, not as ghosts, but as gravity, the gravity of intention, the pull of choices made long ago that still shape the light we see today. To build something so lasting without needing to be remembered by name is to belong to time itself. The hands we cannot name are the hands that shaped our remembering. They did not leave signatures, they left alignments. They did not seek eternity, they built it. We call it a tomb because we have no better word, because there are bones inside, laid carefully in basins of carved stone, because ashes whisper from the chambers, because death lingers here. But to step inside Newgrange is to question that word, to feel the truth humming through the stillness. This is not merely a place of endings. It is a beginning in disguise. Most tombs seek to contain the dead, to close a chapter, to draw the veil. But this one opens. Its passage is aligned with light. Its chamber cradles fire. Its entire structure is a vessel designed to receive, not conceal. If it is a tomb, it is one that dreams of stars, of rebirth, of return. Perhaps that is why the builders burned their dead, not to destroy, but to transform, to make the soul light enough to travel the narrow stone corridor toward the sun. Perhaps the solstice light was not just for the living to witness, but for the ancestors to follow. A golden path through the dark carved once a year, just long enough to remember that the wheel turns again. The chamber feels not like a grave, but like a womb of stone. Not an end, but a threshold. Every spiral carved into its wall speaks not of stillness, but of motion, a movement inward, then outward again, a spiral of return. And so we must ask, was this truly a tomb, or was it a memory machine, a cosmic engine? A place where death became direction, a marker of time, not to count the years lost, but to guide the soul to where light begins again. A place where something ends, so something else may begin. At the heart of all spirals is return, not repetition, not sameness, but the deep rhythm of coming back. Changed Newgrange was not built for linear time, it was built for the curve, for the great circle of the sun, the moon, the soul. Each year, the winter solstice comes again, and the light enters the passage. It does not rush, it remembers. It follows the path it has always known, and touches the ancient basin with gold. And we, who stand outside, in coats and boots and modern breath, we wait, just as they once waited. We lean into the wind and the quiet, hoping for that single perfect moment when the beam pierces the dark. And when it comes, even just for minutes, we feel it. The return, it is not nostalgia, it is not memory. It is a knowing that the pattern holds, that time breathes, that what was becomes again, not identically, not without sorrow, but in rhythm. The eternal return is not a belief. It is a presence felt in the slow movement of light through stone, in the hush between stars, in the silence of a chamber that has waited 5,000 years for your listening. The people of Newgrange did not write their knowledge in books. They built it, stone by stone, spiral by spiral. They created a place where the world turns and the soul remembers. And we who thought we had lost such wonder, find it again in the hush of a solstice dawn, in the curve of a chambered mound, in the stillness before light returns. What began in darkness rises again in gold, and so it turns, and so it returns. And so do we. And now, dear dreamer, our journey through shadow and stone comes to rest. The chamber grows still. The spiral closes in soft silence. The last golden light fades from the ancient basin of memory. You have walked the path of the sun. You have listened to stones that do not speak in words but in waiting. You have stood at the threshold between dark and dawn, where the living once called out to the stars. And the stars, for a moment, answered. Let the hush of Newgrange remain with you. Let the river's quiet curve flow through your breath. Let the Kobodi's sky arch above your dreams tonight, holding you gently in its sacred stillness. If these whispers of long-forgotten wonder have stirred something silent in your soul, let your presence be known with a gentle, like a quiet joining of our circle. Through the act of subscribing, we are dreamers here, wanderers through time's forgotten corridors, and together, we return each night to listen for what history left unsaid. If you feel called to share, let us know from which corner of the world you join this drifting hour, so that, across oceans, across time zones, we may feel the shape of our shared stillness. Now close your eyes. Let the light within you soften. Let the spiral carry you inward to that secret chamber of peace where memory sleeps and the stars still sing. Rest well, dreamer, and when next the solstice light returns, may it find you whole and waiting good night, and may the echoes of the ancients guide your dreams ever deeper into wonder.